This video is not about rumors. It's not about hate. And it's not about making noise. This video is about one question. A question millions of Americans are quietly asking. Why does accountability feel fast when it's regular people, but slow, almost frozen when it's politicians? And right now, that question keeps coming back to one name, Ilhan Omar. Why hasn't she been arrested? Not because of gossip, not because of online drama, but because people keep seeing the same pattern over and over and over again. Here's the first thing we need to talk about: the media. Because this is where trust started breaking. When a story helps Democrats, you see it everywhere. Breaking news, panels, experts, non-stop coverage. But when a story raises serious questions about Democrats, something changes. The story becomes complicated, unclear, or it just slowly disappears. That's not a conspiracy. That's something people notice. And once you notice, you can't unsee it. People don't feel informed anymore. They feel managed. Let me give you a real example. Minnesota. Most Americans heard one simple line: nonprofit fraud happened. That's it. But here's what didn't get explained clearly. Fraud happened on a massive scale. Taxpayer money was involved. Courts convicted multiple people. And after that, the questions didn't stop. That's the part where things go quiet. Now, let's slow down here, because facts matter. Minnesota has already had confirmed fraud convictions. That's not opinion. That's court record. Millions of dollars were proven to be misused. So when people ask, could there be more? That question isn't crazy. It's reasonable. And this is where Ilhan Omar enters the conversation. She represents the same state where these fraud cases happened. She's a sitting member of Congress from Minnesota. She has been publicly linked politically, not criminally, to networks and organizations that later came under scrutiny. No court has convicted her. That part matters. But here's the issue people can't ignore. The questions about her finances, her associations, and her oversight have never been clearly answered for the public. And when questions stay unanswered, they don't fade away. They grow. Now, let's talk about the part that makes people uncomfortable: money. People ask about money not because of gossip, but because public officials are expected to explain changes in wealth. When lifestyle changes happen, when disclosures raise eyebrows, people ask questions. That's not jealousy, that's accountability. Reports have pointed out that her financial growth over a relatively short period raised public curiosity. Has any of this been proven criminal? No. Has it been clearly explained to the public? Also, no. And when explanations don't come, suspicion grows. There have been hearings, reviews, and investigative interest around Minnesota programs. Congressional committees looked into fraud. Federal agencies stepped in where evidence existed. But here's what frustrates people the most. Those investigations seem to stop right before political leadership. Whether that's legal caution or political protection, the public is never really told. And when people don't know what's happening, trust collapses. Here's how mainstream media usually frames this. They say, "There is no proof of wrongdoing by Ilhan Omar." That sentence might be technically true, but it avoids the real question. Why were the questions never fully addressed? Media doesn't investigate silence. Independent voices do. People don't think in legal language. They think in fairness. They see everyday Americans arrested, audited, fined, and then they see politicians surrounded by delays and explanations. That doesn't feel like justice. Another pattern people notice: when Republicans face accusations, Democrats demand investigations immediately. But when Democrats face questions, they ask for unity and call it a tax. That double standard doesn't go unnoticed. And this is exactly why Donald Trump still connects with millions of Americans, not because he's careful, not because he's polite, but because he says what others avoid. He talks about fraud. He talks about misuse. He talks about accountability. The media calls it dangerous. His supporters call it honest. So let's answer the main question directly. Why hasn't Ilhan Omar been arrested? Because arrests don't happen unless prosecutors believe they can win. Because political cases require higher certainty, and because power creates distance from consequence, that may be legal, but it doesn't feel equal. Americans aren't asking YouTube to arrest anyone. They're asking for transparency. They want investigations explained. They want money trails clarified. They want to know that no one is untouchable. This isn't about hate. This isn't about communities. This is about truth, accountability, and equal rules. When media avoids questions, people stop trusting it. When power avoids accountability, people stop believing in the system. And that's why this conversation isn't going away. I'm Mark. This is Mark Brief. If these questions matter to you, take a second to subscribe. This channel exists to keep asking the questions others avoid.